thank you very much for coming so numerous. This is crazy. Like, really, I think we never had that many people, and pretty cool. So, welcome to the digital meetup number 10 already. And yeah, we had 160 sign-ups this time. This is by far a record. That's why I put this champagne bottle here. And obviously, as we can see, also the best show rate, probably. Yeah, this is really cool. So just a brief word about myself. My name is Marco. I organize these events now almost for a year. And yeah, it's really cool to see how we get better every month with this meetup. I've been working now for almost a year as a freelancer in digital analytics, consulting companies on tracking Google Analytics implementations, Google Tag Manager, and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm working full-time in my own company I founded with another former Rocket colleague. And yeah, together we do digital analytics and business intelligence consulting. Our name is Pandata. So visit our website, come by for a coffee. We're very happy to talk. Thanks a lot to Deutsche Bank for hosting us tonight and for sponsoring the drinks. The space is really great. I mean, it's beautiful and it's always awesome to have free beer. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, that's right. And yeah, thanks a lot to our speakers as well. So tonight we will have, through the looking glass, welcome to Wonderland of Attribution from Philipp von Loringhoven. He's head of business intelligence and marketing technology at Lamudi. And we will have the rise of Programmatic by Alexandre Pham, who's head of platform solutions at AppLift. And afterwards we obviously have our networking and drinks session as usually. And yeah, just another short word about Pandata. I wanted to say we're hiring, so if you know any Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics specialists, BI specialists, yeah, just approach us anytime. And now I'll hand over to Stephan Dietzel from Deutsche Bank, who will briefly introduce his startup services.
Thank you. I think it has nothing to do with us that you have such a big show rate. It's really amazing to have you here. I think I'm the first and the last person to talk to you in a suit today. I want to take it briefly. Yeah, first let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Stephan Dietzel. I'm part of the management team of Q110, Deutsche Bank of the Future. And I just want to take the opportunity to just quickly say what is Q110 and why we are sitting in this kind of a pop-up location. Q110, Deutsche Bank of the Future, it's like the branch over there. A couple of guys just stand there and want to go inside, but it happened here tonight. Q110, Deutsche Bank of the Future, it's kind of a concept and brand store. We opened it in 10 years ago in 2005, and we want to show how the banking of the future could look like, and what you can do in a really cool atmosphere, which has to do with banking. And it really works. We're not hiring, but we're growing really fast. A lot of clients came to us during the last years, and it's really amazing. And we offer all banking opportunities in this branch, and especially startups. We have a team of six girls, who are offering products, solutions, and of course advisory for startups. And I just wanted to say that to you because maybe you know someone who likes it and want to take this opportunity. Once again, thank you very, very much for being here. I know it has nothing to do with Deutsche Bank, but I think it's always amazing when Deutsche Bank offers free beer, sorry. So, have a good time and hope to see you again soon. Bye.
So coming up next, Philipp von Loringhoven, Through the Looking Glass.
Okay, so sorry for that. Okay. We're living in a digital technologized world, things can break. And most of the times they do. So Marco said that I'm going to talk about through the looking glass attribution, through the looking glass, and what's there to come. That changed a bit. What do we actually see? And this is a story about what attribution most of the times is currently, is in most of the tools that you use on a day-to-day basis. We were just asked if somebody wants to be hired to work on Google Analytics, and because it's one of the tools with the biggest distribution, you see that. So, as a beginner, as a starter, let's think about what's the status of multi-channel attribution currently. And we report on a macro level. That means we report on the checkout, we report on, if you're a lead business, on a lead generation, we report on maybe a contact call if your offline channels are already incorporated into your online marketing world. We do this split by channels. Channels are broad. Channels can convey anything. So we don't really know what it is except for one thing, that it's owned by somebody, owned by Facebook, owned by Google, owned by Twitter, owned by AppLift, owned by companies. They calculate a direct historic value. Cost per order, cost per, you name it, cost per action. They're historically assigned. And they just give credit. So again, they give you a historic overview. And this makes sense. Most of your heads of online marketing people, most of your CXOs, they want to understand what's my return on invest. What's the effect to my bottom line? This is good. Don't get me wrong, this is not wrong. But what we as digital marketeers, as BI people, as data-driven people tend and use and want is more insights. We want to actually find the synergies in between our channels, from online marketing to product. We actually want to understand, why doesn't something work? Or how could it work better? So we work on foggy goals, we work on macro level, we work on the highest possible notion to actually find out what keeps everything on the lowest level together. Thinking about quantum physics, we could say, okay, we're working on the sun when we want to understand what's actually happening on quant. Could work, does work. If you ever use attribution levels, then yes, you're good, you're better than 58% of all other companies, but you can do better. So why do we want to focus on a micro level? So first question into this audience, who of you knows the AIDA model? Hopefully a lot. That's good. And let's say most of you, in some reason, more or less work in marketing or work in analytics. That's also good. So what we always report and what we want to engage in is we want to create awareness in online marketing. We want to say, hey, we're a good product. Yeah? We're there, we can solve your problem. You don't even know that you've got a problem, but here we are to solve it. Then we want to convince them into consideration, saying, yes, we're there, yes, I could use them to solve my problem. Then we create a preference phase, we jump into an action where they actually generate our macro goal. They say, yes, I want to use them. So for Marco, that would mean, please come into our office and tell us how you could help us in consulting us. It's a lead. But again, we're missing the steps to come there. We're missing the consideration phase. We're not really learning about, how many pages did they read? Why? What did they read? How did they get here? How did they even find me? Why? Which content worked? Why didn't it work? And last but not least, and the most important part, because that's actually where our bottom line can grow without us spending any more cents on anything else, is we convert them into loyal customers. So macro goals give you the notion of the engagement towards your product, towards what you're saying, towards what you're selling. So within multi-channel attributions, micro goals, they focus on the engagement. If you understand them correctly, they will trigger loyalty because they sign up for a newsletter. They download your newest micro page on Google's AMP pages to help you introduce them into your new WordPress theme. What I just did. They again help you to find synergies where you hope that there are some between your marketing team and your product. Most of the times, this is just silo thinking, and silo thinking actually doesn't really help you. And again, long run, loyalty, brand awareness, it decreases acquisition costs. We can hire more people to then again get people to do stuff that we, and as managers, don't want to do. To what do we currently attribute? So again, MCAs always try to attribute to a bigger picture. A lot of pictures, a lot of channels in there, but no clear view. And again, it's okay, it's the broadest picture. Your CXOs, your head of online marketing, they need this. All what I'm just talking to you about is not something that's wrong, but somewhere where you as digital pioneers in some points of analytics can actually advance and become not only more productive, but help your business units more. So hopefully all of you have heard about these terms. First one, offline, online to shop. How much of my channel marketing actually contributed to my offline events? Second one, AMS, across multiple devices. Last one, across different channels. So these attributions are borrowed from the blog Arkham's Razor by Allinaz. And the question here is, who knows Inception? Why? Because if you love Inception, and if you really understood the message to some parts of that movie, not that complex layering of different layers of understanding, but that can trigger an idea, trigger a meme, and tell somebody, this could be interesting. And maybe after some years I buy a Porsche because I saw that awesome ad when I was 14, and I still want to have that great feeling that I had when I saw the movie, the clip. That's messages. That's not channels. I wouldn't attribute that to YouTube because I saw that video clip on YouTube. I would attribute that actually to the message, the things that I saw. So, as a second layer where I said, okay, to what do we attribute? It's actually trying to understand what do these messages drive? Which engagement do they support? How can you, as the person who drives the analytics, actually support your online marketing and tell them this message is good for us? This message supports our bottom line in these and these and these messages, which micro goals do they serve? So how would this look? I would group, and I'm grouping messages by their semantic underlying meaning. I group them by an engagement level. And I group them by an engagement trigger, which means, okay, not all messages always are created equal. Some are more based on savings, so you could look at a savings message level. Because important, you can spread different messages across different channels. You can't force people down one customer journey saying, okay, they'll always come from SEO and then go to an SEA ad and then go to Facebook and then they're done. No, they're not. But what you can do, you can adjust them, also thanks to new nice technologies, programmatic, intelligent ad buying, and direct demand marketing. You can say, okay, this message fits to that segmentation of my user groups. I don't care on which channel you are, and this is gladly nothing anymore that's only limited to display. I can step by step enhance my messaging and my targeting and my retargeting then essentially to drive these messages across the different channels. And if I understand this, I easily can get the shift down to their impact. So understand your messages, get them straight, talk to your online marketing teams, understand why they communicate how they do. Talk to your product team so they can also tell you what the people who communicate and interacted with these messages actually tell you and show you. Next step. Where do we put our online marketing money today? It's based on customer acquisition costs, or which channel actually worked good on getting new customers. It's based on cost per order, which channel drove the most orders, and by that decreased our average order costs. Or from where did my most profitable orders come from? Again, this is always a historic view. Yeah? This gives me the overview to what happened yesterday. Again, not wrong. Better than a lot of companies out there. But what we should actually again do is focus on the customer, and this is what every startup pioneer tells you on the long run. Understand your customers, understand why they do what they want to do. What's their value? How can you value them? We're not changing perspectives, we're still staying in the perspective of my return on invest. We're just saying, okay, I want to understand how much engagement and how much money does this customer from that message actually drives, or could he drive? So use the customer lifetime value, because if you've got good systems, and most of us will today be able to get their marketing data on a hit level, be based on now. So if your marketing team thinks about what to do, then it'll be based on that. So last step. Who gets credited? Currently it's challenged. Currently again, yes, and I know it's bad that I always say historic, but it actually is. Huh? We try to credit, we try to say, okay, this channel worked, so he gets the credit for it. But don't we want to get in front of the race? Don't we want to say, okay, if the customer interacts with this message, that's the tipping point for him to actually say, I convert now. Where to spend your money to better understand how to get them to a paying customer, how to get them to converting, or how to engage them and make them more happy with your brand. Yes, this is nothing that your current tracking tools directly offer you. Yes, you can build automatic attribution models in Google Analytics. Google is good at artificial intelligence, don't get me wrong, they're awesome. Huh? They just completely eradicated any Go player on this planet. But nevertheless, you guys have to think about how to test the underlying effects of each and every message towards the likelihood of the outcome that somebody converts. Because if you understand this, if you understand the lift of the message, you can again support your online marketing team to better plan out their journeys. On a complete level, from the creative to the message to the channel. So first, think about your lift. Think about how does this message support our endeavors to actually do something good for our bottom line. Then look at the historic perspective, give the credit, and think that the lift actually worked. So in summary, my plea. Multi-message attribution across different channels with multiple screens. Wouldn't that be an awesome place to live in? So focus on most granular analytics. Look into your messages, and look into your micro goals. Perspective on a customer lifetime value, and look at the underlying lift. And yes, your CMO, your CXOs, they can keep their media mixes. They can have the big picture. They need the big picture. They need to sign off millions. But your channel managers, your head of online marketing, they need a support to understand what does this actually do to the performance. Your head of product, your CPOs, they need to understand what channel with which message, which effect does this have, and why did it have this. And we're the group of people that can actually support this. So, thanks for 50 minutes of your time, and we're open for questions. None? Even better. Silence was worse, but this was okay.
Very good.
Yeah?
What's your technical setup?
In my current company, okay. Technical setup is, as always, in most Berlin-based companies that I work for, it's Google Analytics. We let Google parse the data directly into BigQuery, and from that hit-level situation, we do all analysis.
And how do you do this with this grouping of your messages?
That's something where we work together with the online marketing team, where we, from the message level, we reassign things and we call them channels.
Okay.
So we say, okay, this is that and that channel. We could call them meta messages or something else. But this is then something where you closely work together on the tracking perspective, on the campaign identifiers, and you say, okay, through those and those regular expression, concisiveness, and naming conventions, I know that this ad, this click event was triggered through that and that message.
And how do you do some extended tracking outside of your website? So when you track Google Analytics, you do it on your website, but you maybe want to see some interaction with your ads or something like that.
So view-through tracking, cross-device tracking based on single login, etc. like this. I've worked at my old company, Terreno. We've worked together with Zinashada to actually look into post-view conversion lifts. So currently, at the current setup, we don't do this. But yeah, I've looked into that. It's still harsh, and through programmatic and through mobile, things don't get easier. They actually get more confusing and crazy because customers don't behave linear. So yeah.
Another question? Yeah, another one.
How do you calculate customer lifetime value and how do you actually use it? I mean, if you want to use it for attribution or for DSPs, then you would need to project the value of the user, the customer lifetime value of the user. But in order to know it or to analyze it, an awful lot of time has to pass in order to see whether you have been right or not.
Exactly. So it's actually not customer lifetime value, it's incremental customer lifetime value. So if you work on this, you do historic projection. So yes, we're again talking about historic values because I can't do any projections and we can't run any statistics if I have no data. And the only data source that I have is the historic. We're a leads-based business, so we're a classifieds business. So what we calculate is not customer lifetime value, but a customer lifetime leads. So on average, over the lifespan of interacting with our platform, how many leads in what situation do they aggregate? And again, also thinking about in which level of engagement or in which level of search are they? Are they just doing prospecting and thinking about, okay, I want to maybe move to Barcelona, and to which area should I move? Or are they actually already considering one area and then doing a more granular search on that? To say, how do we then combine this is actually, as we already said, we're doing a projection and then with a time look-back window, and for us, this is currently, I think, dependent upon the country, so we're live in 32 countries, this ranges between 62 days and can come up to 120. So we actually always test again over the lifetimes, and yes, it's cookie-based, so it's completely flawed, and we know about this. But again, we've got the people in the country, so we can directly ask them how long is the look-back window that we should work with, and then use that to do the projection. And then after that lifetime span, you look back and say, okay, were we right, or how way off were we? So yeah, it's a completely wacky system currently. But we're getting to a granular level that actually can help you better understand where you're driving and which messages actually can drive that.
There's another one in the back.
So does that mean your attribution model changes as your messaging changes? And if so, how do you keep up with the A/B testing?
Good question. Yes, it does change. But being honest, how many different kind of meta messages are there? So there's the story that each story on this planet is only made up of 6 meta messages. Yeah, it can change, and it will always change, and it must adjust to the different underlying achievements or goals that online marketing has. But they tell us. So we work closely together. Our CMO and I, we talk on a daily basis thinking about, okay, where can we go? What problems do they have in analytics? What can we solve? Through this close exchange, we are quite great on the heartbeat of their changing messages. Again, we're grouping the messages. I'm not looking on each and every detailed display banner performance that has a different wording. So we're not talking about wording currently. If we would do this on wording, I would recommend that you do this on a channel level. So you do your attribution then on a channel level to better understand which messages for that channel drive this. And then you aggregate upwards and you say, okay, the messages overall channels, how do they perform? And then you can give this to your CXO and say, okay, your return on this calculation is this. Did that more or less. So being honest, it's a pain. And doing the A/B testing is even a bigger pain, because that on the one hand side would mean cutting down budgets on some messages and thinking about do they work. And the glad thing there is, nice companies as Facebook and Google are, they now offer you the AppLift calculations. So you can always try to incorporate this into your underlying models and think, how does this affect my could affect my bottom line. So for us, could affect how many leads were created in that message stack, in that message group. Good.
Well, thank you very much then. Thank you very much, Philipp. That was very interesting. And one thing I need to tell you also, I didn't say it before, we actually have another novel this meetup. Danny in the back is recording the talks, so after that we will make them available to you guys so you can look at them again if you like. Yes, we have on stage Alexandre from AppLift talking about the rise of mobile programmatic.
Thanks, Marco. Second topic of the night, the rise of mobile programmatic. Does it ring a bell for some people, programmatic? Raise your hand if you know somehow what is programmatic. I have two colleagues over here, I hope they don't. So let's start from the beginning for those who don't know. Tonight we're going to talk about mobile advertising. So mobile advertising, what does it mean? Basically it's every advertisement that you see on your mobile phone. So I started working actually at AppLift about 3 years ago, and every time I was going back to my home country, so Paris in France, I had to explain to my parents what I was doing. So the simplest way of doing this is to tell them, look at your phone, look at your iPad. Yeah, my mom has a nice iPad, and she just looked at the banners and I said, this is what kind of advertising we're doing. So banners is the simple way, then you have native, like Facebook is doing, then you have video. So that was the simplest way I could explain what I was doing. But then I had a comment from my parents. It was more like, okay, is it because of you that we have all this shitty advertisement on the phone, that my big finger is clicking everywhere? I said, it's maybe not my fault, but the industry contributes to this. And to that, I come back to Berlin and I start working in this company. It's exactly what we're doing. And then I tell myself, but advertising, mobile advertising doesn't have to be that useless or that annoying for the user. So there is a chance for advertising to be as meaningful as possible and as targeted as possible. So as we can see on Facebook, for example, we have a lot of advertising through this because Facebook knows a lot about you guys, as much as you don't want it to know. And they use this for your purpose. So they will have data engineering teams, they will have machine learning, artificial intelligence teams looking at your newsfeed and just starting to look at what appeals you. And so this kind of advertising is actually what should be the way going forward. Something that is more personalized, something that has a content that is meaningful to the user and not just spreading whatever banner or interstitial or video we think is relevant. So if you've been using your phone, I guess everybody has a smartphone here, otherwise you may not have seen these things, but this happens. So one that is on video is, for example, on Facebook, you can see these ones. This one in the middle is what we call interstitial, and happens whenever you are playing a game, for example, in between levels. There will be this kind of advertisements for maybe another game, maybe a banking tool, something like this. or something that is much more integrated, and the industry is talking a lot about this, is native. So advertising that is really, that fit into the content on an app, and that you can barely see, let's say. So tonight, we're going to explain 3 things about programmatic. The first thing is, what exactly do we mean by programmatic? Second is, why do we think programmatic is a useful way of doing advertising? And the third one is, how do we want to do this? So to explain programmatic in a very simple way, you have to look at what Facebook is doing. So Facebook is providing a platform, both online and for mobile, where you can target your users with very, very deep granularity in the targeting. So programmatic is more like a way of doing advertising that is more automated. So it's basically machines doing the buying of ads on several ad space that we call inventory, mobile inventory. And so if we want to understand this, how did we get there, we have to look at how did it start. So how did it start? Basically, at the start, when there was not many ad technology platform, publishers were working directly with advertisers. So you had, for example, some product that you wanted to advertise. Let's say selling surfboard. I will go to a publisher that has, let's say, a surfboard mobile website or mobile app, and I will tell him, look, I have this kind of product that I want to promote. Can I put my banner, can I put my video, can I put my advertising on this platform? And then he will say yes, he will say no, you make money or not. The second model was ad network. Ad network came when there was a need for aggregating both the demand, so any advertisement types, and the supply. Any publisher that has traffic on their website, on their mobile app, that they want to monetize. But then still, this system was not automated in the way. You had still some people working in the middleman and exchanging links, for example. Then came DSPs and programmatic platform. So DSPs are platform SaaS solution that you can use online on mobile and allow you to specify exactly your targeting options, how much you want to spend, what's your goal, CPI target, CPA target, everything. And then you say, I want to target male, I want to target female, I want to target people who have this kind of interest. And hopefully this platform will do the buying automatically. How they will do it? Through a technology platform that will link basically the demand and the supply. And this ecosystem looks like this. So on the left side here, you will see every advertiser, let's say what we call the demand side. And on the right side, you will see the end user, the users that hopefully advertising agencies and DSP are trying to target and to reach. In the middle, we discussed about DSP. These guys are where you put your targeting options. And then on the other side, you have the publisher. So any mobile app developer who has traffic, or any mobile website which has traffic. In the middle, you have ad network, ad exchange, and SSPs. To make it simple, ad exchange and SSPs are platforms that it's SDK based, and they will plug themselves into your app and basically serve the ads that you have on your app. So they will look at several parameters from the user that you have. So let's say I have a social networking app and I want to display ads. I will install an SSP or an ad exchange, and I will be able to display ads to my end users because my supply side, SSP, and my ad exchange is plugged to several demand side platforms. And this demand side platform, because they have all sorts of advertising, they know exactly what can fit with your audience. So this ecosystem will work in the best way to reach basically the advertiser goals, but also so on the demand side, maximizing the goals from the advertiser. It either is reaching user, reaching a certain cost per sales for an e-commerce website, let's say. And on the publisher side, it will be to maximize their monetization. You are a publisher, you have a website, you have an app. What you want is to make money out of this traffic. And so, how big is the programmatic ad market? If we look at both online and mobile, this is a $20 billion market, $20 billion market. If we look at only mobile, it's more than 50% now. And this was in 2015. So now the question is, why do we use programmatic? Why don't we have, why did we go away from the system where we had to talk to people on the phone and advertise things manually with publishers? The reason is, actually there are 5. The first one is efficiency. So if you don't want to exchange links, obviously you will use machines. Technology here is present, so the main advantage here is efficiency. You don't want to have to deal with people on the phone, you want your ads to be directly displayed in the minute that you want them to be displayed. So one of the advantages of programmatic is that it's efficient in terms of time, and it's also efficient in you don't have to wait for any other middleman if you want to play your ads. The second is scale. So if we look back at the chart before, with the publishers having SSPs and the ad exchange plugged to them, basically you will have an infinite amount of supply, because all the applications out there that you're using, without knowing, are using these tools for monetizing. And so DSPs, agencies, are able to target you anywhere you are on your mobile. This is a bit scary, but don't be scared. Third one is cost effective. Cost effective in a way that how the programmatic world works is that instead of buying just a click or an installation of the game, you will control your advertisement from the impression level. Meaning you will be able to know exactly which ads have been displayed to the end user, and you can control this. Meaning you are buying a single impression of a user. So out there, some people are targeting you as, let's say, male living in Berlin who has 2 kids and who is 30 years old, and they will put a value on your impression on your mobile device. And that's how they believe cost effectiveness is happening. Because if you're promoting, let's say, a very strategic, hardcore game, maybe your audience is not this little girl playing with the iPad of her parents, which is who's 6 years old. You may want to have a very, very highly targeted parameters for this, and you don't want to waste impressions on this kid, for example. The fourth one is transparency. Transparency is a need that a lot of advertisers are looking for. They want to know exactly where the ads are being displayed. They don't want to have, let's say, their casual game, let's say Candy Crush, doesn't want to be promoted on adult website, for example. And the fifth one, and actually one of the most important, is targeting. We said before that on programmatic you have access to the impression level. The impression level gives only. That's how deep you can go. Okay, so now you decided, I would like to do it, but how can you actually succeed in programmatic? Because this is not something that takes few weeks to learn. You need a lot of data, you need a lot of money to invest. And so here are some tips, because we've been doing this for a while at AppLift, for programmatic advertising to be efficient. So one of them is getting your pencil and everything, or more like Photoshop, and be creative. So what you can control here is the impression. So you want to control how your ad is going to look like. So the creative, so the image or the video or any advertisement that you display at the end to the user matters, and you need to understand from the data that you get. Second point is data. From the data that you get, in which user segment, for example, this user belongs to. We're going to put this in perspective afterwards with e-commerce example. But let's say that you guys work in analytics. You have user segment for a specific website or mobile game or mobile app. You will want to personalize the message for each of these segments. If you are dealing with, let's say, a paying user for your app, a hardcore gamer, you will display him probably a different message that if this is someone that is playing your game every day but is not monetizing, maybe you want to give an incentive for this user who's kind of greedy to spend. Or maybe you want to reward the guy that is actually spending a lot in your app. And this can be also made through algorithm. And I see my two BI guys over here. This is what these guys are working on. So making this as automated as possible. We have a user segment and we want to target these users with the right message at the right time and at the right placement as well. The fourth one is access to supply. So it's not about going to the supermarket here, but more about knowing how you can reach the users that you're looking for. Of course, you have Facebook now as an advertising platform that provides you with billions of users already. But not everybody yet is on Facebook, or not all the time. So you may want to target them elsewhere in every other apps that they are using. And so making sure that when you are running your campaigns, you are reaching your audience and you have as much supply as possible, because you have, let's say, strict targeting options, and you need to have, let's say, the biggest pool as possible of users that you can target out of this. So you have data, it's great, but what can you effectively do with them? We are going to talk here about 3 things that data can be useful for. The first one is negative targeting. So imagine yourself as a game publisher, for example. You have 2 million users and you're spending money on advertising for new users. Would you like to display an advertisement for your game to these 2 million users with a message saying, hey, play now? It's maybe not that effective. Maybe you want to get rid of these guys and send them another message. So one way of using your data in a smart way is through negative targeting, meaning you don't want to send the same message to someone who already has your app or someone who is just a new user. So it brings us to the second one, which is re-engagement and cross-app targeting. So we were talking about user segment before. Let's say you have your segment of, these are my paying users, these are my greedy users, they come but they don't spend. And then these are my inactive users. So depending on the user segment that you have within your app, you can actually display them with the right advertising for them, dedicated to them. So making A/B testing, this is important, on what's the best message, which message has the best effectiveness for each of the user segment. So you will have, let's say, your 10 user segment, and then you will make creative A/B testing for all of them and iterate. Something that we see also when you do programmatic advertising is the creative is important, but you also need to change the creative quite often. So there is this thing called the creative fatigue, which means every 3 weeks we see that the performance is going down in terms of performance of the campaign and KPIs. One way of changing this is to always renew your creatives and make, let's say, a new experiment with this. The last one is lookalike targeting. So from the user segment that you have from your database, you may know that the one user is a female 36 living in this city, or you will have a male 22 living in this city. So this user segment, and with the data that goes with it, can help you create lookalike campaigns. So believing that one person with the same kind of demographic data or behavioral data will be interested in the same type of apps. And so lookalike campaigns is something very, very strong to, can be linked to a search that you did on your desktop. And so that's the goal of this e-commerce player, is displaying to you your intent, the object that you were looking for, and giving you the right incentive to do this. So streaming this data is powerful. This is something you can do real time, and only programmatic and real-time bidding can provide you with these tools. So moving forward in mobile advertising, we believe that programmatic will take an important part of the overall mobile advertising spend. It won't take over everything, but it has enough, let's say, advantage for advertiser to at least look at it and see if they can benefit from it. As a conclusion, mobile advertising is still, I think, at a very early stage. When I still talk to my parents, they still tell me advertising that we see on our mobile phones is not as great. So I just hope that one day in the coming years I can come back to my parents and say, we made advertisement good enough or great enough, or at least not as scary as some people may think it is. Thank you.
Any questions for Alex? Here's one.
As a user, how can I get the best rebates?
The best rebates?
With my behavior. So I know I can buy directly, I have to look, and then I have to come back. How long do I have to wait? Or
I think that can be an option. You also have some referral code, maybe, that you can share from friends. No, I mean, this is a way of not all the e-commerce players will be doing this, but this is something that we see a lot of interest in, because that's what's happening online. When you are not coming back, cookies, everything, the whole ecosystem, Criteo will be there to bring you back. And then it's either they believe that the incentive of making you come back is worth giving you a discount, or just displaying to you the banner constantly. So it's going to be also about analytics. What's the actual effectiveness of the ads that we're displaying?
There's another question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no marketing expert, so maybe I'm talking bullshit. But I mean, I see this as really cool and interesting. But I see like the biggest challenge at this point of view is gathering the data about the user. Right? So Facebook actually has the data, of course, because we are like stupid, like liking things, and then Facebook knows it all about us. But how do you do that outside of that platform? So, of course, I can know, as the example that you gave, on my e-commerce platform, I can understand like what my users like or what my users do. But how does behavior data get shared among different sellers or different networks?
Okay, that's a good question. We can go back to the whole ecosystem slide. So here you may have seen the DMP part. So we distinguish several types of data in advertising. There is the first party data, so these are the data that you own. These are, let's say, on mobile it's the device ID and all the information that you have on a certain device ID. Then it's going to be the user segment and any actions that belongs to this user segment. These are the most powerful data. Then second way of also accessing data for advertising is through external partners, because these first-party data actually belong only to the advertiser and they shouldn't be shared for other purposes. You have also platforms that are connected to telco carriers. So these guys, it's also called first-party data because they are deterministic data. Your carrier, Deutsche Telekom or any Vodafone, they know your age, they know your gender, but they also know everything else that you do on your mobile.
Sure, but I don't think that the carriers can share that information from you with the advertisers, can they?
They can, and it's quite recent. This has maybe 1 or 2 years, but there are some companies, and what they do is they have these deals with telco providers where it's an opt-in system. So in the end, the end user agrees of sharing this data and sharing anything that they are doing for a certain incentive. But then you also have other companies getting this first-party data in other ways. You may not know sometimes that you are logged in on an app where you provide information. And these apps, as sneaky as this can be, can monetize on the information of all the users that are browsing their app. So we heard about some companies that, yeah, it's exactly this model. They monetize on every user who has ad impression on their app and is sharing this data to their platform. And then what they do is a data marketplace. They make on one side publisher pay to get the data. Actually, they pay publishers to get the data. And on the other side, they get paid by agencies, advertiser, to retrieve and use this data. Because what you want to do as a marketer is probably something like audience targeting. But if this guy tells you, look, I have 10 million guys who are exactly in your targeting, then they will do it. And the last one we can talk about is the third-party providers, so DMPs, which have third-party data. Companies like Bluekai, Lotami, Excelate on desktop. They take both probabilistic data, deterministic data, and they build a profile. Some other companies are only specialized in location-based data. There is a company in Berlin called AdSquare. Someone is familiar with AdSquare? So what they do is they will take the map of Germany and they will split the map in 50 meters square everywhere. And then they will look at several data in these 50 meters. So they will use location-based information to retrieve who are the IP, what are the IP address, what are the device ID that I can see in each of these square. And let's say they have a square on the Frankfurt airport, Berlin Tegel, and Munich airport. They will kind of trace back, and if they meet the same user, then they will categorize this guy as a business traveler. If they see that another guy is hanging around areas with many restaurants, then they will say, yeah, restaurant lover. So they will create this category and then resell this information.
Okay, that's scary.
One last question, maybe. Related to the thing that you just mentioned, how do they actually collect this data? Like the company who collects geolocation data, who pushes the data to them?
So it can come from any app publisher which has traffic on a specific, it can be any game, so they will plug themselves into this game that you play, I don't know, Quiz Duel maybe, and they will see every ad request, and they will take every IP address, and they will get all this information. So there are other ways of doing it. Some of them are doing it in a very deterministic way, so 100% sure, and some others will kind of sell you user profiles that may not be accurate, but that can be at least tested.
Well, thank you very much, then.
Thank you very much, Alex. And yeah, we'll be very happy, or we will be very happy to have a drink with you. We just gather over there. There should be still some beer, and yeah, I think most of us will be around for some time. Thank you very much for coming.